the coaching hierarchy that never ends. There is a quiet hierarchy inside the coaching industry that rarely gets examined, largely because those inside it benefit from pretending it is progress rather than escalation. It starts innocently enough. Personal coaching, then business coaching, then leadership coaching, then neuro-linguistic programming coaching, then Neuro-Semantics, sometimes branded as neuro-linguistic programming PLU, meta-coaching, or higher-order leadership. Each rung promises greater insight, deeper transformation, and more sophisticated understanding of human behavior. What it never promises is an endpoint. That is not an oversight. It is the design. Unlike established professions that narrow their scope as expertise deepens, coaching expands its scope while shedding accountability. Each layer sits further away from observable outcomes and closer to ideology. The higher you climb, the harder it becomes to question what you are being taught, and the easier it becomes to explain away failure. This is not how serious disciplines evolve. It is how belief systems protect themselves. A hierarchy of abstraction, not competence. The coaching ladder is often framed as growth. In reality, it is a movement away from grounded practice and toward increasingly abstract claims. Personal coaching deals, at least superficially, with identifiable goals. Business coaching claims to improve revenue or performance. Leadership coaching moves into identity, influence, and values. Neuro-linguistic programming reframes communication and behavior as programmable patterns. Neuro-semantics claims to explain how meaning itself is created in the nervous system. By the time someone reaches the top of this hierarchy, they are no longer helping people do things better. They are helping people reinterpret reality. That matters, because abstraction is where pseudoscience thrives. The less measurable a claim becomes, the more confidently it can be sold. There is no requirement at the upper levels to demonstrate improved outcomes, long-term stability, or relational impact. What is required is fluency in the language of the system and loyalty to its assumptions. The hierarchy looks like expertise. It functions like insulation. Why psychologists do not recognize neurosemantics. One of the most revealing signals in this entire ecosystem is how little recognition frameworks like neurosemantics receive outside their own bubble. Ask practicing psychologists, clinical supervisors, or academic researchers about it and you will often get the same response. They have never encountered it. That is not because psychology is closed-minded or threatened. Psychology absorbs useful ideas all the time. Cognitive behavioral therapy, attachment theory, trauma-informed practice, acceptance and commitment therapy, and neuroplasticity all moved into mainstream use because they produced evidence, survived critique, and integrated with existing knowledge. Neuro-semantics did none of that. It exists almost entirely within coaching training programs, certification pathways, and proprietary models. It does not appear in psychology curricula. It does not feature in peer-reviewed journals. It does not generate falsifiable predictions. It does not require regulated supervision. That invisibility is not a coincidence. Real advances leave footprints. This one does not. Adding the word neuro lends authority without obligation. It borrows credibility from neuroscience while bypassing its discipline. It sounds scientific enough to intimidate clients and impressive enough to silence doubt, but it does not submit itself to scientific scrutiny. That is not innovation. It is branding. The speed problem no one wants to address. Another clue that something is wrong sits in plain sight: the timeline. Coaching certifications promise deep insight into human behavior after 7, 14, or 21 days of training. Neuro-linguistic programming and related models claim rapid, sometimes immediate transformation. Meanwhile, psychology requires years of study, supervised practice, ethical oversight, and ongoing professional development. The coaching industry explains this discrepancy by reframing psychology as outdated, slow, or limited, while positioning coaching as agile, modern, and holistic. That explanation collapses under even mild scrutiny. Human behavior is complex, contradictory, and deeply contextual. The idea that one can master it faster by skipping rigour is not bold. It is answer IOUs. Speed sells because speed avoids accountability. Long-term outcomes take time to assess. Coaching programs are structured to deliver certainty quickly and move on before consequences surface. Leadership coaching without leadership exposure. Nowhere is this inversion of expertise clearer than in leadership coaching. Leadership coaches routinely teach people who have already climbed corporate ladders how to climb those ladders better, despite having never done so themselves. They have not managed large teams under pressure. They have not navigated industrial relations, regulatory scrutiny, budget constraints, or organizational politics. They have not been accountable to boards, unions, or shareholders. What they offer instead is leadership language, frameworks, models, quadrants, identity shifts, narrative coherence. This is not leadership practice. It is symbolic fluency. It allows leaders to sound reflective, intentional, and values-driven without changing the material conditions they operate in. It flatters the client while quietly recentering authority on the coach. The implicit claim is not "I have done this." It is "I understand this" at a higher level. That move removes the need for experience entirely. Business coaching and the myth of monetized belief. The same dynamic plays out in business coaching, particularly in the now ubiquitous promise of earning $10,000 a month. Many coaches teaching this have never run a business outside coaching. They have not built products, managed payroll, navigated cash flow crises, or absorbed commercial risk. Their business model is selling belief to others who want to sell belief. This is not mentorship. It is recursion. The coach's success becomes the promise. The client's struggle becomes evidence that they need more mindset work, more coaching, more alignment. Failure is never attributed to the model. It is always reframed as resistance, fear, or insufficient commitment. This is indistinguishable from multi-level marketing logic, even if there is no formal downline. Every coach needs a coach as infrastructure. One of the most revealing phrases in coaching culture is also one of the most normalized. Every coach needs their own coach. This is often framed as humility or integrity. In practice, it is structural dependency. In regulated professions, supervision exists during training and early practice, then becomes optional peer consultation. Surgeons do not pay other surgeons monthly to remain surgeons. Psychologists do not require lifelong paid oversight to practice ethically. In coaching, perpetual coaching is not optional. It is moralized. If you stop, you are out of integrity. If you question, you are avoiding your edge. If you leave, you chose comfort over growth. This ensures there is no exit that does not feel like failure. It also ensures money continues flowing upward. Income instability and the pyramid effect. Income instability in coaching is often dismissed as a mindset issue. In reality, it is a structural feature. As in MLMs, the people at the top earn disproportionately. They sell certifications, advanced containers, elite masterminds, and higher-order frameworks. Those below them cycle through programs, often investing tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars chasing stability that rarely arrives. Some never recover financially. The 5-star reviews and testimonials mask this reality because they capture emotion, not outcomes. They celebrate identity shifts, breakthroughs, and insight. They do not track long-term financial security, relational health, or psychological well-being. The industry rewards performance, not sustainability. The testimonial economy and why it misleads. Coaching testimonials follow a familiar pattern. They appear at moments of emotional intensity, often immediately after programs end. Participants describe feeling seen, empowered, transformed. None of this is fake. Emotional highs are real. Group dynamics are powerful. Belonging feels profound. The problem is what testimonials do not show. They do not show what happens 6 months later. They do not show relationships strained by sudden identity shifts. They do not show debt accumulated chasing the next level. They do not show disillusionment when promised outcomes fail to materialize. Testimonials function as marketing, not evidence. They validate belief. They do not test it. The perpetual learner trap. One of the most socially acceptable forms of stagnation in this ecosystem is the perpetual learner. This is the person who is always reading, always training, always upgrading. They move seamlessly between self-help, coaching, leadership frameworks, and spiritual development. Learning becomes identity. On the surface, this looks admirable. In practice, it often replaces application. Perpetual learning delays accountability. It offers the comfort of movement without the risk of commitment. There is always another course, another framework, another insight that must be integrated before action is taken. The coaching hierarchy feeds this perfectly. There is always a higher level, always a deeper layer, always a more advanced lens. Completion would break the model. Projection disguised as behavioral expertise. Many coaches describe themselves as human behavior experts after completing NLP or related training. What they are trained to do is not observe behavior openly, but interpret it through a closed system. Ambivalence becomes resistance. Distress becomes fear of growth. Boundaries become limiting beliefs. Disagreement becomes low consciousness. This is not insight. It is projection with vocabulary. Because the model already knows what behavior means, listening becomes unnecessary. Feedback that contradicts the framework is dismissed rather than examined. This is how important human signals get missed. Not because coaches are malicious, but because the system trains them to see confirmation, not contradiction. Why psychologists enter coaching anyway? It is also worth addressing the uncomfortable reality that many psychologists now move into coaching. There are practical reasons. Coaching allows higher fees, fewer restrictions, less paperwork, and broader claims. It allows psychological tools to be explainable without regulatory constraint. Some do this ethically, carefully limiting scope. Others drift into the same overreach that defines the industry. The danger is not psychologists entering coaching. It is coaching eroding the boundaries that protect clients. When regulation is framed as limitation rather than safety, harm becomes easier to justify. The question no one wants to ask: if coaching works as advertised, why does it never conclude? Why do coaches need perpetual coaching? Why does the hierarchy keep extending upward? Why does doubt always signal the need for another program rather than reflection on the system itself? Real development builds capacity and independence. Ideological systems build dependency. The coaching hierarchy that never ends is not evidence of infinite growth. It is evidence of a model that cannot tolerate completion. None of this means that reflection, learning, or personal development are bad. It means they are being commodified in a way that prioritizes belief over evidence and escalation over resolution. When a system defines growth as endless upgrading, reframes failure as mindset, and positions itself above established disciplines without accountability, skepticism is not cynicism. It is due diligence. And the fact that this hierarchy has no natural stopping point may be the most important signal of all.